Good morning, everyone. It's the 6th of July. It's about roughly 2 weeks since I had my brain removed and replaced. So it's one of these very, very misty Hong Kong days with the surrounded by sort of cacophony of bird song, rather misty hills, and that very sort of almost monochrome atmospheric feel that you get from Hong Kong. What I thought I'd do is give you a short video, not too long, I promise, about basically where things sit at the moment, so you know progress. There's not going to be another of these, this is going to be it. But really what I want to do is produce something that can help people. So people who've had a complete surprise and a 180-degree turn in their lives, literally in the snap of the finger, and then had to get on with it. And that's what I've been trying very hard to do. As you know, I've had a lot of support from friends and colleagues and family and everyone else, which has been fantastic. And I'm not going to go on about that. So what I want to do, I want to produce this account really of what I've gone through, how it's affected me, how I'm coping with it, and hopefully this will give you, anyone else who faces something like this, a bit of a insight in how they might cope as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the background, because I know some of you are not aware of this, but have been asking, so to give you a little bit of detail. I'm going to then talk about the week where I had this sort of, if you like, stabilization week, and then finally where we are now and what the game plan is going ahead. And that should really allow you to generate some questions if you wanted. I'm treating this like a management workshop, I don't mean to, but I know a lot of you have a lot of questions, and I am more than happy to answer these questions on email or voicemail or telephone or whatever you like. You just ask me, okay? So the background, it came more of a surprise than a shock, I have to say. You know, I've always been fit, 6 days a week I'm doing things, 5 days out at sea, a day, sometimes 2 days in the pool. So I've always kept fit. I've had a predominantly plant-based diet, steady social life, happy family life, the list goes on. So I ticked all the boxes in many ways for, you know, being healthy. But being fit doesn't necessarily mean you're healthy. That's the sort of wisdom that's come out of this. So what happened? It was quite straightforward. I'd had a normal weekend of exercise, and it was midweek, and I was running a workshop for an engineering company, and it suddenly became apparent that I was unable to hold the pen, the flip chart pen. It kept falling out of my hands, and I thought, what on earth's going on here? And that was that became even more apparent when I went for a Chinese meal. I couldn't hold chopsticks, I couldn't sign a check, I couldn't do up buttons. So the left-hand side, and I am a lefty, which some believe is a sign of the devil, but I promise you it's not, it's a sign of me. This happened. So luckily the friends I have or many of the friends are in the medical profession. And one of them said, look, let's give you an ultrasound. It's probably something like cyclist palsy, which is when you trap your nerve and the fingers don't work, which we did. But there's an issue, and the issue was that whilst there was movement in the fingers, there was also feeling, and that suggests it's not a trapped nerve, but it might be something to do with the brain. And one thing led to another. I had an MRI scan, and there he was, this unwelcome resident sitting around about here in the brain. And I have called him Nobby. And Nobby will occur, the name Nobby will be coming up a number of times. Nobby is suddenly named after somebody called Nobby Stiles, who was a Manchester United footballer, a very, very aggressive, a very, should we say, competitive fellow who was responsible in many ways for holding somebody called Eusebio at bay. Eusebio was sort of the Ronaldo of the 60s. So anyway, this is why he's called Nobby, okay? And there's another story to that. So along came Nobby, and then they had to confirm whether or not there were any other mini nobbies in me. So they put me through this thing called a PET scan, and what they do with that is they pump you full of glucose water and Chernobyl juice, and then they go and expose you to some kind of radiation, and then if you have tumours, they light up like a Christmas tree. And in this case, only Nobby, the fairy at the top, lit up. So I think that's a good sign. At least that's all they could find of Nobby. So it was obvious that it was going to need to have some kind of surgery. And in typical efficient Hong Kong style, it was just put together like that. A group of surgeons came together, the hospital was geared up, and I was literally within literally days, less than days, I was put into the operating theatre. And the operating theatre, I have to say, was a real experience, and one I'm glad that I had, because I can talk about it and bore you with it. What happened was I decided to go for what was called awake craniotomy, I think it's called, which means they basically take the top of your head off and they work on your brain, and you are awake watching it on a screen. Can you believe? Yeah, it's really watching it on a screen. It's really surreal. So anyway, you're watching it on the screen. Have this very, very cool, calm and collected surgeon called HT. Very calm, unruffled. He was the man. And this rather amiable, quiet but amiable anaesthetist called Matthew, who had a rubber duck. Yes, a yellow rubber duck with a red beak. And the idea was that when they were twisting away in the old brain, he would tell me to squeeze the rubber duck and say rubber duck, and that's what I did. And it was interesting because they said you're going to have a bit of a seizure. I would like to think of it as a dance routine. I had these two dance routines that would have put Michael Jackson to shame. I tell you, I was leaping around and doing pirouettes as they touched bits of my brain with this magic wand they had, which they used to basically dissolve the tumour away, and that's the idea. You go in with this, I don't know what it's called, but they sort of atomize and liquefy the tumour from the inside out, and then they extract the tissue that comes off that. So that's what happened. They did that. The whole thing went through. I was awake virtually all of it. They put me back to sleep again, and then they took me into this ward. It's a beautiful ward. You will note, by the way, pictures appearing above my head. These are my thoughts, but it's a little bit of technology at play as well, just so you get more of a picture of what it was like. Put into this ward, and then I ended up having another rubber duck experience. We had a visit by 10 or so nurses, and it was around about this time that they decided to remove a catheter from a part of my body. And this catheter was somewhat like a McDonald's straw. And this came out at speed and was indeed yet another rubber duck moment of great volume. Anyway, that was out of the way. Anyway, 3 days I was out, and that took me into the next phase. So that was phase 1 sorted. Phase 2 was then to stabilize me. So they gave me this handful of drugs that would have put Pablo Escobar to shame. Took these drugs, basically steroids to take down what they call the edema, which is the swelling in the brain. These other pills that are what I call anti-dance pills, they stop you leaping around, having seizures. During that period of time, I had a few twitches, but they began to see birds listening to me. He obviously likes this story. I had these, and it was indeed a very, very interesting week. Could you be quiet, please? I'm in the middle of a discussion here. It was a very, very interesting week. Oh, I'm sorry about this. That's what they do, you know. Had a very interesting week. It was interesting for several reasons. We had the visit of our president, Xi Jinping, to celebrate the 25th return of sovereignty to China. We had a storm called Shapa, a typhoon that went over and ripped the place to bit and put the seas up and had the trees swaying, and it was an exciting element. What else? I had to move my office from the 35th floor to the 36th floor of PCCW Tower. I did that with the help of my business partner Alan in Australia, who did it by remote, and another friend called Frenchie, who was on the ground making sure everything got together and ticked. So it was an interesting week, but it was also a week where I was able to think and focus about what I needed to do. And it was here that the sort of dharmic wisdom, if you like, of one of my other paddling buddies, Shaky the surgeon. Yes, that's true. That's his name. Great name. Lovely guy. But he said, and I've repeated this in an earlier video, you now need to concentrate on the things that you can do, not on the things that you cannot do. And that has stayed in my mind. That's become a mantra in many ways, in concentrating on what I can do. And so I used that week for a number of things, and one of which was understanding the capability of what these little things can do, and the iPads as well. And the ability to use AI and where it was all going. So it was a combination of reading up on AI and machine learning, trying it out, beginning to be able to use the phone just completely by remote, in other words, by voice recognition, with the help of that lady. I won't mention her name, S-I-R-I, because every time I do it, she starts asking me questions and wants to help me. I think she might have a soft spot for me. But anyway, that's another story. So that was the week. It was a interesting week. I was supposed to rest, and I did, but I had lots of phone calls from friends and lots of supportive messages, and it really began to make me realize how important friendships are and how valuable they are in many ways that you don't even realize. I also began to pick up some other techniques. So one of the things was I'd get tired periods. They wouldn't last for long. But then I had, thanks to my daughter who lives in the Isle of Skye of all places, she gave me this meditation exercise. Now I'm a skeptic when it comes to meditation and things like this, but I went with this. And it was basically 4 breaths in, down below the navel, and that was thanks to Hoffman, my next door neighbour. Take the breath down below there, and then 7 out. And the time I'd done that 10 times, I was either asleep or meditating. I don't know which one it was, but all I knew was that after about 15, 20 minutes I came to, I would have this burst of energy as if I'd just woken up from a really good night's sleep. So it was amazing that a short period of time, you can actually do that. The other thing that I found useful was always being out here. Every morning I built a routine. So I would come out here, as I have today, first thing in the morning, where I could hear the birds, I could see the verdant surrounds around me. And this was really good for the mood, because life is good. Times like this, you realize that life is not just good, it's really good, and it's special, and we are gifted. We're blessed to have something like this. So that was the week of, should we call, stabilization week. And I began to focus on what it was I wanted to do and how I wanted to really approach this rather unique and, I will say, challenging situation. So I'm going to use some sports analogies, because these are things that have helped me think about this and reframe what could be negative thoughts into positive thoughts, but also something that keeps you charged up and say, look, it's different, but it doesn't mean it's not as good. And that's very much what I'm going to be focusing and talking about on, with effect from now. So you can bear with me on this, okay? So there we have it. We've had what's happened to me, we've had the stabilization week, and now we're at the stage where I have to go and meet the fortune tellers. And this was yesterday. The fortune tellers at the CUHK Medical Center. And in this case, I'm talking about 2 wonderful people. One who is the ophthalmologist and the other who is the neurosurgeon. And I have to say, I went in and I wanted it straight. I didn't want any punches pulled or anything like that. I just wanted to give me the facts, and so on. And it was a sobering experience, to say the least. But it was what I wanted, and it's what I got. And this then really gave me an insight into the competition, Nobby, because he is going to be my main competitor. He's up there, he's still going, he's aggressive, he's fast moving, he's highly competitive. He wants to control this side of me. I want to push him out. So we have a situation where Nobby has been injured. He's been given a good beating up by the surgeon HT, and Maisie, the otologist, will be following up with this, and I'll explain what that is in a moment. But he has been given a bit of a beating, and he's not happy about it. And he has got his little roots in there, and he's determined to stay, and I'm determined to get rid of the little fella. But it is not going to be easy. He is a known quantity, and his level of competitive is well known. So for me, this is going to become like a marathon surf ski, long-term marathon surf ski race, which I've got to train for, I've got to be ready for, and I've got to be ahead of Nobby if I can. I'm lucky because I've got dashing good looks and disarming charm, and look at this beard. I mean, Brad Pitt, just, you know, eat your heart out, buddy. It's all there. I've got these on my side. I've got technology on my side. Every year there's new stuff coming in, and there's new stuff being found out in Hong Kong as well. And in this particular case, it is somebody called Dr. Wu, who I've agreed with the neurosurgeon to meet with. He's basically the head of the research group that looks at brain tumours in Hong Kong. So he and I were exchanging notes, and he'll get a copy of this video and all this sort of stuff. So he'll be part and parcel of this this package of how to survive and thrive. So what's going to happen? Well, it's going to be a punishing regime. I'm going to have 30 sessions of radiotherapy, which is where they're going to bombard me in a targeted way. Now, if you look here, see they put a little marker there? It's not a tattoo. They've done it with ink. These lovely people in the medical science put this in ink, and they put this sort of sticker so it doesn't wash off. That's to help them target exactly where they're going. Now, it's not the arrow, but that locks me in place with this sort of masks they've made, and then they will bombard that particular, we call it the tumour bed, where Nobby sits or where Nobby sleeps. They'll get that, and they will start to try and destroy this extension of Nobby. So that will take place. That's going to be going for 30 sessions over a 6-week period. So every day, every weekday, but the weekends are off. And also chemo. And the chemo drugs have come a long way in the last 5 years or so. But we don't know what the result. Everybody reacts in different ways to different types of medication and treatment. So if this is going to make me lose my beard, or make me go bald, or teeth fall out, or head starts spinning around, or who knows? Nobody knows. There are a number of unknowns. And I think the thing I have learned, firstly, do not look at the internet. Do not try and self-diagnose. It's the worst possible thing you can do, and I haven't. I had a quick sneak look at what Lance Armstrong did, the cyclist, and that was, I wish I hadn't. And we're different. So that was a waste of time. But that's the only time I've ever looked at anything to do with cancer relief, or everything else. Likewise, I take graciously people's advice on what they've had, but I'm very much going to follow what the medical people see, and also what I will do myself. And a lot of it is about having a very clear mind about what you want to do, very strong focus on this is where I'm going. You know, this thing, as a rough marker, if you can get through 3 years, after that it becomes exponentially less chance of it reoccurring. But this 3 years is a big push with this particular one. But it's a push I'm gonna give. I give it my best shot. So that's what the game plan is. Radiotherapy, chemotherapy. We'll be looking at immune therapy of some kind, and basically moving forward. There'll be an MRI again. I'm having one on Thursday, just to make sure it's targeted in the right place. Thursday, that's tomorrow. And then I'll probably have one maybe a month or two after all the radiotherapy and chemo is finished, to see whether we've actually had any effect on good old Nobby in the head there. I can exercise, which is good, so I'm gonna start doing a lot more intensive exercise. because my left-hand side doesn't really work very well, you can see it's a bit sort of, I can't, that's all I can sort of do with the left-hand side, whereas the right-hand side is, you know, still there. I probably end up walking around in concentric circles, but nevertheless, I'm going to keep the body going, which will keep the mind going and everything else. Going to keep seeing people. I'm going to be going into work as normal. I won't drive in case I have a Michael Jackson breakdancing session midway through Central or something. So Uber is going to be my main source of transport, and probably MTR, because, you know, we've got this great thing where for nearly $2 you can go everywhere, so it's as cheap as chips. I'll probably prefer to go Uber, because at that stage in life, you know, you want to be a little bit, yeah, enjoy life a bit more. So there you go, that's it. That's essentially where I'm at now. This is what my attitude is. I am realistic. I know this is a huge challenge, but I'm up for it, and will continue to be up for it. I'm eating well, I'm sleeping pretty well, I'm you know, able to engage intellectually with people well, so everything seems to be good at the moment. I don't know what effect chemo is going to have on me. It affects different people in other ways. I may suddenly become nauseous and all this, so I'm not underestimating what the impact of all this radiotherapy and chemo is going to be, because, you know, it's pretty heavy duty, 6 weeks being bombarded. What I do know is that in the evenings my head will glow green. So nobody, if I go dither and start wandering off somewhere, they won't have any problem finding me, because I'll be glowing in the dark. So that's pretty good. So there we go. So on that note, I just want to once again say thank you to everybody, particularly the medical centre, the CU HK Medical Centre people. I mean, they have been amazing. Their admin staff is slick. It's true Hong Kong slick admin. You know, this sort of thorough and rigour with a sort of veneer of friendliness and everything else. And they are very, very nice. And some very, very lovely nurses there who've looked after me and, you know, helped us to very old fool get his top on and off. The neurosurgeon, the neurologist, and the optometrist have been great. And of course my friends have been fantastic, and my family have been fantastic. So it's a big thank you to all those who have been giving me moral, spiritual, physical, every other support. So I just want to say thank you so much, and don't worry about me. You can see I'm ready to go, man, ready to rock. I will answer any questions. Want to send me any notes or anything, I'm happy to respond and tell you exactly what it is. I'm not going to pull any punches. I'm going to be completely open about my situation, and in the hope that this is going to in some way help some others at some point in time. So on that note, I will say goodbye, and I'm going to do a rather gracious exit, because this is what you do. You stand up like this and you disappear with a big smile on your face.